Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of the Wiccan Conservative. Today, I have nothing on the agenda planned for you. I just wanted to come on and kind of start ranting about everything that's been going on in the news cycle. The last time that I spoke, actually, with you guys, we spoke a little bit about the Ukraine Russia kerfuffle, if you will. We spoke about what was going on as far as NATO and what the U.S. House representatives and senators were saying, and pretty much just kind of lulled through it, to be honest with you, because what we're finding out is a lot of this information that's going around right now is not confirmed. A lot of it is being debunked, and the people who are speaking about it have to go back and issue retractions and explain why they got information wrong and so on and so forth. And I'm really not interested in doing any of that. I would like to hang on the outskirts, kind of see what's going on, and then eventually jump in and talk about it and talk about the facts, because we don't want to waste any time on things that just aren't true and things that aren't happening. What I do want to talk about in regards to the Ukraine are the Ukraine martyrs. If you see me kind of looking off to the side, it's because even though I don't have a complete agenda, I have a couple talking points. So this is something that has been going around, at least the right-wing news media, for a while now. And the first time that I saw this was on Salty Cracker's webpage. I don't know if you guys follow him or not. Apparently, excuse me. Apparently, he has a big following on the internet, and I was really late to that party too. But he does really good reporting in a comedic, off-the-cuff sort of sense. So if you're into somebody who's pretty accurate with his reporting and also incorporates a lot of comedy into what he does, Salty Cracker is worth going over and taking a look at. But he brought up this TikTok video of, I can't remember where the kid was from, but he was talking about how Ukraine was asking for aid or recruits from other countries and mercenaries to come in and help with the Ukrainian army and fight the war against Russia. So this kid goes over there with a bunch of other people, and I've seen a lot of different outlets and pundits pick this up now. So this isn't just fake news rolling around. This is actually happening. These people are going over to put their lives on the line for the Ukrainian army. And when they're getting there, they aren't being given the proper rations. They aren't given any body armor. If they are given a weapon, they're given very limited ammunition. And actually, the building that just got bombed was housing a group of these recruits, and they ended up just being cannon fodder for the front line and for the Ukrainian army. And it's getting so bad with these people that when they go and they want to leave, say they're done, they realize what's happening and they no longer want to be a part of it, they go to leave. If they have any distinguishing markers from the army or pertaining to the army, they're being stopped. Their passports are being ripped up and eliminated, and they're basically being held hostage inside Ukraine. So there's a big bug. Sorry. I really hope he doesn't come for me. But anyways, so when they got into the country, they were told all these things, and they seen what was happening, and they decided they want to leave. And now they're being told that they can't leave. They're being martyred for the cause. And then after this big explosion, Zelensky actually came and made a plea to the United States and the surrounding countries that lost these martyrs, for the actual militaries of these countries to step in and avenge the deaths of these individuals who chose to partake in the Ukrainian armed forces. And it's really interesting to see the people want to back this or use it as something more than what it was, and that seems to me to be a setup. Considering the information that we're getting is not true and accurate, considering the bolstering that people are doing on behalf of Ukraine, and to transition from what's happening in Ukraine and Russia into what's happening in the United States as well, because this is something that I'm just so giddy to touch base upon. And that's the Hunter Biden laptop story and how it is 100% true. They verified it in the New York Times, I believe. But anybody that has been paying attention since the 2020 election knows that this was pretty well verified prior to it coming out in the mainstream media. First and foremost, the pictures were accurate. There was probably a way to deny it, because you can deny anything, but the type of material that came out in plain view of the American people showed that it was probably more than likely going to come out as Hunter Biden's. We had his address, they had his signature, and I don't know if a lot of you guys know, maybe you remember hearing about it, maybe you don't. There were actually 3 laptops, 3 Hunter Biden laptops. Each one of them made their way into a nefarious zone, if that's what you want to put it, because the laptop that has finally been confirmed is the one that he left at the repair shop. That is the one with the emails on it regarding the Burisma holdings interests, the money that was potentially being laundered from the United States aid to Ukraine back to Hunter Biden through Burisma. This was also the laptop in which he was in a unscrupulous relationship with his niece, I believe it was, and also his brother's wife, his dead brother's wife, if I'm not mistaken. There were 2 very incriminating pieces of evidence regarding 2 family members of his. You're more than welcome to go look up this information, but that was just one laptop. There's another laptop, and I don't know if you remember hearing about this story. This story came out about this laptop that was in this woman's possession, and she was trying to sell it to the Russians for incriminating evidence against the Bidens. And at first, that entire story was told to be completely unfounded, not true. Turns out that is actually true as well. So this woman tried to hustle off this laptop to the Russian Kremlin, and it was intercepted by the FBI. So as far as I know, the FBI has possession of 2 of these laptops, and the third one is the one that they actually got a warrant for and confiscated from Hunter Biden himself, I think. Pretty sure that's how that third one went down. But the first 2 I know for a fact are true stories. One broke through the New York Post, and the other one broke through a tabloid magazine. It was like The Sun or something like that, when they were talking about this woman taking the laptop. And I think that's what helped boost the possibility that the first laptop was a non-story or a negative story or a Russian disinformation story. was because the second laptop had come into question. I don't think a lot of people realized that they were two separate laptops. But as far as I know, there is an indictment in the works for Hunter Biden. What will come out of this indictment, we won't know until after the court case is settled. And again, what I've been telling you guys from day one, court cases don't get decided overnight. They definitely aren't decided in the court of public opinion. And it will be something that we have to keep an eye on for a very long time. Which brings us back to Rudy Giuliani and his Dominion lawsuit. The time is coming for a movement on that case. I have not checked it recently, but now that we know what we know about Hunter Biden's laptop, about what Rudy Giuliani himself was in possession of and attempted to turn over to the FBI during his own raid, his Dominion lawsuit just got even more interesting because of all of this extra stuff that's going on in the interim. So know that it is something I'm still keeping my eye on, but I can't update you for anything that isn't happening. But I did want to say on that note, going from the Rudy Giuliani Dominion lawsuit into some of the news that I've heard about the 2020 election, because that has reared its ugly head in the past couple weeks when going through mainstream media posts. There's a big kerfuffle going through each of the individual state houses and state representatives about the right of the states to negate their electoral certifications. Constitutional scholars will tell you that there is no constitutional outlet in place at the moment to negate electoral votes or to reverse the Electoral College. But when you look at the Constitution, and particularly the article and clause that they are attempting to use in H.R. 1 to federalize our elections, you see that the state has the sole power and authority to dictate their election process. So this brings me into the question of, if we have a process to certify these electoral votes, why didn't we listen to the people who were making objections prior to the certification, as the process should dictate? If there's not a consensus on the electoral votes, if we don't agree on the representatives to cast our ballots for us, and ultimately, for whatever reason, if your elected ballots go against the state law, there is a remedy to fix that. What the issue in 2020 was, and why they didn't want to allow those court proceedings to play out, was because of what I just told you. It takes years to get through a court process with appeals and things like that. And they had already made the law of the deadline for the inauguration process. So we caught ourselves in this paradox of legislation where we have to follow a certain law to get to a certain place in time, to follow a certain law in another aspect of the legislative process. And this brings me to another point, and that's if we should really be worried so much about passing new legislation as much as we should be opposed to passing new legislation and reforming legislation that's already on the books. We know that the states have the ultimate power to dictate the elections as they see fit. Therefore, there should be either a process in place to stave off a conflicted electoral college where you can run through a process, because we've had fraud before. We've had massive fraud in our elections before. And if we're really paying attention, and this is something we want to get to the bottom of, then we can allow our process the proper time to evolve if there is an issue, or we can turn around and create a law that negates an electoral vote if we find there to be discrepancies in the way the election was held. What we are finding out, anybody that has done any type of deep dive research into the election matter, we must look at the facts. And the facts of the matter are the machines themselves were not as they were presented to the people. So there's issues in the way that the machines themselves communicate, store, and tally data. Within my own personal experience, I can tell you that those issues exist. But what the bigger issue in existence is the way that our states are allowing our votes to be counted. We need to have clean legislation rules. Judicial Watch is still in court right now, trying valiantly to clean up state election rolls. We need honest citizens to step up and be a part of the electoral process. They need to be a part of all aspects of the election. They have to have integrity. You have to hold your other poll workers to an integral standard. And I feel like if there is any way to bring this process back to a one-day event, we need to do it. I wanted to say that very shortly because I know that there are going to be exceptions to the rule, people who are going to need absentee ballots, and that's fine. We can work on a case-by-case basis, but what we should really strive for is a clean election. I don't want a poll. I don't want a popularity contest. I don't want anything to drag beyond what it has to be. I feel that if you want to vote, you'll make it a priority. You'll make it a priority to be educated, and you'll make it a priority to be there on that day. When we allow too long of early voting, when we allow the drop-off boxes, when we allow no excuse absentee ballots, I believe that that is voter manipulation in a way, because you can take somebody in a vulnerable period of time, convince them of something on a dime, have them cast a ballot, and walk away from the situation never intending to keep your promises. And we've seen this through our political history. There's been nothing but political lies, people who make promises that they don't intend to keep and that they can't constitutionally keep. And the American people get frustrated, not only because they feel like the candidate let them down, but because it's never explained to them exactly how the candidate let them down. Granted, they lied outright to your face, but it's a little bit your fault too when you allow yourself to believe something that's not possible can happen. It's just something that we really need to pay attention to. And going through into the future, in order to build trust back into our government, I think that that's where we need to bring our points home. And we really need to focus on making sure that the vote that goes into the process of creating laws for everybody is the cleanest vote that we can have. It's very easy to manipulate people. That will never change. You will always have voters who are swayed by external features, one particular policy or another, favoritism, tribalism, whatever you want to call it. But in order for us to just trust the system and say that that's really the will of the people, then we all have to be on an equal playing field in the case that we aren't taken advantage of. We aren't overly taken advantage of, I guess is the better way to say it. But that's all I'm going to say on that matter. Let's move on to the People's Convoy, because that's another thing that I touched base on very briefly with you guys, but I kind of want to go into this a little bit further as well, because we are going on, I think it's day 27, 28, something like that. We're pushing 30 days of the People's Convoy, and our efforts just never hit where Canada hit. I know that Canada ended up with a heavy foot in their face for everything that they attempted to do, but by George, they did it right. Like, they were out there on, what's the word I want to say? They were not wreaking havoc, because that's not the way that I want to say this, but they were making their presence known. That's the better way to say this. Our convoy is so polite, for lack of a better word. And I'm not saying that these people aren't going about this the right way, or that they aren't thinking clearly, or whatever you think I'm trying to say. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is there's a way to be effective, and then there's polite protest. We are seeing of our own volition, because we the people have decided to peacefully non-comply with a lot of these matters. Most of us are way beyond any persuasion at this point. You haven't proved to us that masks are effective. You haven't proved to us that your shots are effective. Everybody that wanted these things is still using these things. Nobody's telling them not to. But this People's Convoy is still going. And it's interesting because I pop in on them from time to time, and I watch First Responders Media, which I showed you the clip from their footage when I did my video earlier. And I also watch Oreo Express. And Oreo Express is notorious for going around the country and hitting multiple protests and doing a great job covering them and bringing those organizers to the forefront. In the People's Convoy, they really haven't hit a point where they've been very effective with their strategy. Their basic strategy was just to go into Washington, D.C., cause a kerfuffle with the traffic, I guess, and bring attention to their cause and let everybody know that whether you want a mask or you want a vax or you want to do this or you want to do that, they were fighting for your choice to do so, not the government's ability to tell you whether you can or can't. They weren't going out there to say the government needed to stop people from wearing masks or the government needed to stop producing vaccines for people who wanted them. They simply said that that should not be a condition of existence. You shouldn't need to cover your face 24/7 to get the supplies you need to survive when everybody else has that access too. You shouldn't be fighting to get a job because you don't want to put a substance in your body that you're not sure how your body's going to react to it, how it's going to affect you in the future and your future medical plans. We just want to be able to make that choice on our own regardless. And this is morphed into something that it should have never been. Now, I was watching the other day, and apparently First Responders Media was approached by a gentleman in a offshooting, joining Convoy to turn over his cell phone and stop recording the progress of the People's Convoy. First responders media drove away and did not indulge this man in his request. But I have to say that it looked like this guy was a straight up fed. Now, he said that, he'd taken other people's recording equipment and it was due to security concerns. They didn't want the police to know the location of the convoy, so on and so forth. But it was really interesting to see this interaction and kind of hear his explanation. And a lot of people chimed in the live stream comments talking about, well, yeah, that's a tactical thing and blah, 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 all this stuff. Look, these people have been out there for 28 days, going on 30 days. If the cops don't know that they're on their way or they don't know where they're coming, I don't know what your back the blue is about then, because you're telling me that these people are stupid, that they don't know that this convoy is coming, or what their possible intent is, or what the routes in and out of Washington, D.C. are. That's nonsense. Oreo Express touched briefly on the encounter and, kind of seemed to dismiss this gentleman. I've heard that first responders got kicked out, and then I heard that the guy that approached them got kicked out. How do you kick somebody out of a convoy, even though you guys are all kind of doing the same thing? What it basically boils down to is that the bigger something gets, the more expansive and the more further from the point you end up being. So when we took on this People's Convoy, it was a great idea, and we took the premise of the Canadian protests, but we weren't all in. And that's something that I've noticed a lot with Americans. We aren't going all in. We like to keep one firm foot on the ground and tiptoe and wade into the shallow end of the pool and say, we did it, and run away and celebrate. But even though we got all these trucks together, even though we know that these people are out there, they really haven't caused as much of an issue as you think they did, even with all the people who have been out there throwing bricks at the truckers, calling them Nazis and anti-vaxxers and science deniers and everything. That they've ruffled some feathers, and realistically, that's been the extent of it. And it doesn't seem like it's going to have the effect that they wanted it to have, because ultimately, at the end of the day, the federal government seems to have subsided on the hard push for the vaccines, but the damage is already done. And Christiane Hall told us this as well, that the force of the federal government really means nothing whether they can get it passed to their liking or not. Because what it does is it opens up a conversation where it turns into the business's choice, and an unholy alliance between business and government, where the business has now been bullied so much by the federal government, even if they won't be held to task for disobeying the original ruling, they've already gotten their footing. They already have their level, and now you either get on their level or you can walk away and try to find another job, which is why I believe that the peaceful non-compliance of the American people has been the most successful part of coronavirus in general. Just the fact that we say no. I told you guys the story of them temping my husband at work and us refusing to go through any of the processes and the procedures, being educated on our rights, asking for the correct exemptions, and just refusing to participate in the game. We have a long way to go, but we've got a pretty good start. And whether or not you believe that the People's Convoy has accomplished their goals or will accomplish their goals, I think that it's still a lesson to be learned from. Still something we can take take a hard look at and say, you know what, here's what we did right. Here's where we had some good wins and where we can rally some people and some points that bring us all together. And here are some issues in which we need to improve. And then moving forward into the future, actually coming to a point where we can have a successful protest, where we can actually address the grievances to the government with some recourse in mind and actually have a proactive plan as to what we're going to do, what our problem solving methods are going to be, and ultimately what we want to see out of our efforts. It was just a little poorly executed in my opinion, but they're out there and they're doing something. So for everybody that's keyboard warriors and wants to talk about how terrible the endeavor has been and it's such a failure, I suggest you guys go out there and start doing it too. It's something that not a lot of people have the time and the effort to do. So the fact that these people are actually cutting into their own livelihoods to even get your attention, it's pretty special to me. So last but not least, the last thing that I wanted to kind of touch base on was I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but the disgusting trend of laughing at COVID deaths. If you guys haven't heard about this, apparently it's a TikTok trend. I think it was a Vice video originally. I was watching a clip of it. I believe it's on You Are Here with Elijah Schaefer. But apparently there's a website now that are giving out Herman Cain awards, and they are screenshotting the plight, if you will, of COVID victims or people who have passed in the hospital that they have attributed to coronavirus. This is one of the most disturbing things I think that I've heard about on the internet. And, we went through the 7 Faces of Death era online in the very early years of the internet. If you guys know, you know. But it's interesting now that the narrative is dissipating so badly that these people have to go and collect the pain and suffering of other people in order to get a laugh or to continue to laugh about the seriousness of this virus. Now, a lot of these people are just your average citizens, make America great again people, if you will. But in the same respect, they don't deserve to have their pain, their suffering, their distress laughed at or I mocked, if you will, on the internet. It was a very disturbing, disgusting clip that I happened to come across. So, I don't know. These people are just, it's insane to me. It's insane to me that you're so desperate to hold on to a lie that you were told that you will dig through the archives of the internet to shame people who passed away. I thought I was a loser. I thought, hey, you sit here and make internet videos and play with your kids and shit all day. So apparently that's not the case. I'm not that big of a loser. So it is what it is. But anyways, that's all I have for you guys today. Oh, no, it's not. I lied. There is a very interesting plan in the works. I don't want to give away too much information because it is very, very early in the planning stages. But I just want to let you guys know, keep coming back. hit that share button, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I know I don't ask you guys a whole lot, but keep coming back because there's something in the works that's going to expand our horizons here on this channel. So on that note, I will catch you guys on the next one.